Once there was a pretty little girl who lived in a house that had a little garden. La, 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 la. They shared good dreams, secrets, memories, every lovely day to go down in history. Forever and ever, everywhere they go.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Farooq Abdullah was released yesterday, and my guest today had an important role to play in that release. I'm hoping today he will reveal some of that inside backstairs story. He is the former head of R&AW, the author of Kashmir, the Vajpayers, and no one knows more about Jammu and Kashmir than he does. Now, he is also an intelligence officer, and like most intelligence officers, he's always modest and reluctant to claim credit. But remember, from him, a hint is actually the truth. And if you haven't guessed who I'm talking about, it's A.S. Dulat. Mr. Dulat, let's start with a report in the Hindustan Times dated the 27th of February, which said you had made a secret visit to Srinagar to meet Farooq Abdullah, and the visit had been effectively cleared by the government. Can you confirm that report?
Of course, I made the visit, yes, but when you say secret, it was not an operational visit, let me put it like that. I did go and meet Dr. Farooq.
So you're confirming this report?
Yes.
Now, am I right in saying that this visit happened on the 12th of February?
You got the date right, yes.
And that was also the date when the second lot of diplomats were taken. Is that right?
That's right.
So did that in a sense provide cover? Everyone was looking at the diplomats. No one noticed that you slipped into Kashmir and slipped out again.
That was only a coincidence. It was a bitterly cold February morning or afternoon, and it had been raining overnight, and the shaded parts of Srinagar were covered with snow. So I just happened to be there the same day. That's all. It's coincidence.
A coincidence?
Absolutely.
Or did you deliberately choose that date knowing
No,
that attention would be on the diplomats
Not
and
at
you
all.
would slip through?
I didn't know till I got to Srinagar.
Let's then talk about the visit. Tell me, how did that visit come to happen?
Actually, it goes back to the middle of October, when the telephone lines were restored, the mobile lines. And I had been trying to speak to Dr. Farooq just to inquire about his health. And I couldn't get through for quite a while. Then I think it was possibly the 31st of October when I finally spoke to him. And I just inquired how you are and all. And he said, we're all fine here, no problem. And I said, are you allowed visitors? So he said, wo to inhi ko puchiye, meaning the authorities. So I gave it a try. I called a former colleague in Srinagar, and he said...
A former colleague meaning a former R&AW officer?
No, an IB officer. And I said, is it possible to visit Srinagar and to meet Dr. Farooq, even for 15 minutes? I just want to ask about his health. So he said, well, if you're very keen, I can ask Delhi. I said, no, I'm in Delhi. Then in that case, I should ask Delhi. And I did try at that time, but I couldn't get through to Delhi. So
you tried, but you couldn't get through?
I couldn't get through.
You mean
I tried a couple of times, but I didn't get any response. Let me put it like that. And then suddenly, somebody said to me, आप जाना चाहते थे, तो आपको कौन रोक सकता है? You can go whenever you like.
When you say suddenly someone said to you...
Yeah. Let's say again, the Home Ministry.
The Home Ministry said to you?
Somebody from the Home Ministry said, yes.
Can I ask how? Did they ring up? Did you go meet them?
No, I got a call, and I was told that we hear you are keen to go to Srinagar, but who's going to stop you?
Around what date did you get this call?
I think possibly the 9th
of
February. So then I said, well, that's great. Then I decided I should go, and it happened to be the 12th when I went.
So after you first made contact with an IB person in Srinagar, 3 months lapsed before someone in the Home Ministry rang.
Yeah, I mean, the response I got, yes.
And the Home Ministry response was, अगर आप जाना चाहते हैं,
तो आपको कौन रोक सकता है? तो जाइए.
And 3 days later you went.
I went.
Tell me, how did you find Farooq Abdullah when you met him on the 12th of February?
Well, to me, he didn't look too good, you know. He's an old man now. Coincidentally, it happened to be his 84th birthday. And he didn't look too good. Also, his eyes were a little sort of not looking good. Since then, of course, I'm told he's had a couple of cataract surgeries.
In both eyes, I believe.
Both eyes. The second one, I think, was done just a couple of days ago. But when I asked him how he was, he said, I'm standing before you. I'm fine. There's no problem.
Physically, he didn't look good to you?
Didn't look good. Didn't look good.
Was he depressed?
Well, I don't think he was happy, but he didn't show it. You know, Farooq is not somebody who accepts defeat easily. No, he didn't.
Who else was present at his home when you...
Mrs. Abdullah was there. And so was his daughter, actually, yes.
So there were two other people present?
But they were not present, I mean, they were just at home, let's say.
How long did you stay with Farooq Abdullah?
About an hour.
About an hour?
About an hour.
Am I right in saying that actually you had lunch there as well?
It so happened, it was very awkward actually, because, you know, I had this small window of going and coming back. And by the time I got to Govt, where he stays, it was almost exactly 1 o'clock. And I said, now, do I go in or do I not go in? It's an odd time. But I said, this is the only time I have. So I went in and he was about to have lunch. So I was offered lunch and I had lunch with him.
I believe you had soup.
That's right.
Mrs. Abdullah offered you a choice of 2 soups.
That's right. She said, are you okay with the soup? Because that's all we have for lunch. And what soup would you prefer? Asparagus or mushrooms? So I looked at Dr. Farooq and he said, mushroom. And I said, mushroom's fine by me.
Let's come to the conversation you had during that 1 hour. First of all, were you carrying any message,
no message, no mandate, no nothing.
No message, no mandate from Delhi?
Nothing. Not even a suggestion, not even a hint. No.
But nonetheless, the Home Ministry 3 days earlier had rung and said, "Agar aap jana chahte hain, jaiye, aapko kaun rokega?"
Bilkul.
So they cleared you to go.
That's right.
But they hadn't given you any message.
Not only did they clear me to go, if they had not cleared me, I wouldn't have got inside that house, because there were people there who knew that I was coming. And so there was no fuss in my entering the house.
Did they facilitate transport from Srinagar airport to Gupka Road and back?
No. I managed it on my own.
You managed on your own?
Old resources.
I take it the IB resource you first contacted?
Whatever, yeah, let's say.
So the IB did have a role in Srinagar in facilitating?
Well, I asked a colleague there that, you know, could I be transferred from the airport to Gupkar, and that was done.
The IB provided a car?
That's right.
Let's come to the conversation you had. What did you talk to Farooq Abdullah about?
Just generally about his health and how he was and what things were. He said, we're all well here. Omar is well. And in fact, he said, you should go and meet Omar as well. And I said, I don't have permission to meet Omar. So we just talked generally, general conversation.
Did you talk about the abrogation of Article 370 and how Farooq Abdullah views that, as well as all the other things that have happened since that date?
There was actually no political conversation really, but Article 370 I think did come up, and he said, well, the matter is in court now. We have full faith in the Supreme Court, let the court decide.
So what then did you talk about during that hour? You can't have just discussed his health and the weather.
Mostly his health and the family, and well, naturally, you do talk Kashmir, and he had a lot of concerns about, you know.
Can you share some of those concerns?
Well, his basic concern was that so many people are locked up, and he was a little disturbed on the PSA which had been slapped on both Umar and Mehbooba, which had been done, I think, about maybe 10-15 days before I visited him. And he was disappointed with that. He said, they've completed so much time, why did they have to put PSA on them?
the PSA was also slapped on him a lot earlier in September.
That's right, that's right.
How
And
did
so he also did mention, he said, I don't know what's going to happen to me because my PSA, the 6 months end in the middle of March.
Did you speak to him about the possibility of any talks with the government
No,
at all?
no. He did say that and he said this more than once, I'd like to come to Delhi and I'd like to speak in Parliament.
He said that.
He said that.
Does coming to Delhi mean more than just speaking in Parliament? Did he also suggest that he might be happy to talk to the government?
I wouldn't have any idea. No, I don't know. I'm sure that, it all depends on, the approach that the government makes.
Did you get the feeling, because clearly you're an intelligence officer and you're very good at sensing situations, did you get the feeling that if the government were to take the first step, Dr. Abdullah would be responsive?
He always has responded.
He always has responded.
Always has responded. He's never said no.
And you believe that would be the case again?
I'm sure it would be. I think this is a great opportunity for the government of India to revive the trust deficit that there is between Delhi and Srinagar, to overcome that. And I think it's a ray of hope for Kashmir as well, that in this hopeless kind of situation, Farooq provides that ray of hope.
And this belief that you have, that Dr. Abdullah always responds if you reach out, was reaffirmed when you met him this time around in February.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he said nothing negative. Let me put it like that.
He said nothing negative.
Nothing negative, except for the fact that he was disappointed. There are two things actually. Now it comes back to my mind. One was this. The other thing which he
The first was being disappointed with PSA being extended
PSA.
to Omar and Mehbooba.
The other thing he did mention, he said, we've always stood by India. And I have brought up my children believing in India, that we are a part of India. But he says, now I find it awkward. I don't know what to say to my grandchildren. He did say that.
So this has created an enormous personal trauma for him.
Of course, of course. And actually, I think he mentioned that because his daughter, Safia, was at home that day. And I'm sure he was talking about her children who were not there.
Is he also suggesting that I'm fully committed to India, my children were brought up to be fully committed to India, I can't say the same for my
Mr.
grandchildren?
Thapar, the Abdullahs have always been committed to India. It's a pity that India has not understood Dr. Farooq.
But was he suggesting that he can't say the same for his grandchildren, meaning they may have second thoughts or they may be wavering?
Those are kids.
Those are kids.
But they would be asking questions. That's what he was implying, that, what do I tell my grandchildren now?
Now yours was a one-day visit. You went up in the morning, you
And I
returned
came back
that evening.
in the evening. Yeah,
I believe you were back home by 6 o'clock.
yeah, about 6:30.
On return to Delhi, did you brief the government? Did you brief anyone in the Home Ministry?
No. There was no briefing, but I was asked, naturally, by people who said you can go, that how did the visit go? And I said the visit went fine.
When you were asked, how were you asked?
I was asked on the phone, like I was asked to go, and I was asked that,
So they rang you up to find out how did
how
the
did
visit
the
go?
visit go? Yeah.
And it was the
I
same.
think I got a call the same evening or the next morning that, kaise raha?
And the same people who said, agar aap jana chahte hain, jaiye,
Jaiye.
were the people who rang the same evening to say, kaise raha?
Kaise raha? That's right.
Now, let me put this to you. Given that you had to wait almost 3 months after your first contact with an IB source in Srinagar,
Not an IB source, as I said, a colleague.
a colleague,
Yeah,
a former colleague in the IB, a
former
colleague in the IB,
that's right.
a colleague in the IB.
That's right.
Given that you had to wait 3 months between your first contact with this colleague in the IB and before you went, and given that you went only after someone in the Home Ministry had rung to say,
That's right.
agar aap jana chahte hain, jaएं. Did you get the feeling that the Home Ministry or the government is keen to start some process to talk to Farooq Abdullah to reach out?
Well, that's something one can, obviously, Let me put it like this, that if the government was not interested in Farooq, I don't think I would have made that trip to Srinagar. Let me put it like that. That's the question you're trying to ask me. Obviously, there is an interest somewhere.
If they weren't interested, they wouldn't have rung and said, Agar aap jana chahte hain, jaye.
Absolutely.
Now, you know the NSA Ajit Doval. You were head of R&AW, he was head of IB. Do you believe this phone call from the Home Ministry saying Agar aap jana chahte hain, jaye would have happened without his knowledge and without his concurrence?
No, it could not have happened without his knowledge, without his concurrence. No. In the system that we have, and we've always had, he would certainly have a role in that.
So he was well aware that you were going.
I'm sure he would be aware.
And I take it he was also well aware of whatever information you gave about your visit to the Home Ministry person that evening when you returned.
Absolutely, he would know.
Let's then come at this point to Farooq Abdullah's release. It happened yesterday, Friday.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is the government order which released him makes clear that just 2 days earlier, on the 11th of March, his PSA detention had been extended for 3 months.
That's what I heard, strangely.
It's on the order. I've checked it.
Okay.
So on the 11th, it was extended for 3 months. On the 13th, it was revoked altogether. What do you make of that?
Well, I think these are just typical bureaucratic reactions. You know, somebody who had to do his job, realizing that the PSA was lapsing on the 13th, probably extended it on the 11th, not knowing what Delhi was thinking or which way Delhi was thinking.
Clearly, it was countermanded by someone more important.
I wouldn't call it countermanded. I think it was just a routine sort of thing. Because I got a call yesterday in the morning, and I was asked that, I was told that the PSA had been extended. And I said, well, that's a bit sad if it's been extended. And then we heard suddenly at midday that he'd been released. Somebody called me up and said, watch it on NDTV.
When, in fact, you got that first call in the morning to say the PSA had been extended, was that from someone in the Home Ministry?
No, it was a journalist.
Okay. Let me now come to what Farooq Abdullah said. In a brief statement to the press, immediately after he was released, he said that he would not make any political comments until all the other leaders had been released. And I asked myself the question which I'm asking you, was that a clever way of keeping silent so that he doesn't say anything that will spoil any possibility of talks with the government?
Well, it could be, but Farooq is basically a politician. He knows what to say, where and when. So possibly he thought, I think he did also say that whatever I have to say, I'll say in Parliament.
No, but he pointedly said that he will not talk on political matters
till everybody was released.
So it could be that he's deliberately keeping quiet because he doesn't want to say anything that will spoil the possibility of any talks, any process with the government.
I think more likely spoil the possibility of the others being released, I would look at it like that, because I think that was his main focus yesterday. I think he named Omar and he named Mehbooba and he said the whole lot should be released.
Now that Farooq Abdullah has been released, what do you believe will be the next steps that happen? What do you think Delhi is likely to do?
Well, I think I don't know what Delhi is likely to do, but I think what Delhi needs to do is to engage and to revive the political and democratic process in Jammu and Kashmir as early as possible. I think that's crucial because there's a huge void there, and that void doesn't do anybody any good. Farooq's release yesterday, apart from what I said, a ray of hope to Kashmir, it gives the common Kashmiri confidence also. This is Kashmir's party, the National Conference. This is Kashmir's ideology. It's very deeply etched in the consciousness of Kashmiris. Whatever grievances they might have against the Abdullahs or the National Conference, they do realize that this is their party and this is somebody they can turn to.
Tell me something. After he was released, did you ring up and speak to Farooq Abdullah? Have you spoken to him in the last?
I have. I tried the whole day yesterday just to congratulate him and ask how he was feeling. But I only got through late in the evening. He sounded happy, but the sense I got was that he hadn't still recovered from the shock of his release.
You mean it came as a complete surprise to him?
Well, you know, when you've been locked up for 7 months and you're set free, it takes the mind, I guess, some time to adjust to the new situation.
Did he tell you when he's coming to Delhi?
I did ask him. I said, you know, you were keen to talk to speak in Parliament. When are you going to come? So his response was, 10-15 din mein aa jaunga.
10-15 din mein?
That's what he said.
He may not necessarily therefore come during this session of Parliament.
I don't know. That's for him to figure out. Because Parliament will be over 10-15 din mein. But you know, what is troubling him is his eye. And so I think he probably needs a week or 10 days rest.
After Farooq Abdullah's release, did you also speak to anyone in the Home Ministry?
No, I haven't spoken.
Have you been in touch with Mr. Ajit Doval in the last 24 hours?
So you keep bringing up Ajit. And, you know, like you said, we've been old friends, we've been colleagues, but we are different types of people. And I have the highest respect for the gentleman as a professional. That's why when you ask me this question, that would he be involved, I'm sure he's involved. I'm sure he's thinking about things ahead.
And in fact, I know that he is a friend of yours. I know that you have dined with each other. I take it that informally, he's aware of what Farooq thinks through you.
I don't know. I don't suffer from these illusions. You know,
Very interesting answer. It's not actually a denial, nor is it a yes. It's just very gently sidestepped. One of the things that I noticed you wrote about in your book, Kashmir, the Vajpayis, you reveal that in 2002, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and L.K. Advani had seriously considered making Farooq Abdullah Vice President of India. It didn't happen in the end, but that is a clear sign that they felt fairly comfortable with Farooq Abdullah.
Well, actually, the whole story goes back to a conversation I once had with Prime Minister Vajpayee at that point of time. And he was keen for Farooq to come to Delhi and have Umar as chief minister. You know, he was very impressed with Umar because Umar was his minister, first in commerce and then in external affairs. And if you remember, on his trips abroad, at least 2 or 3 times, Umar accompanied Atalji. So he was very keen for Umar to go there and to Farooq to come to Delhi.
Umar as chief minister,
and
Farooq in Delhi as vice president.
And when we discussed it, he said, yes, we could adjust him as vice president.
And in fact, your book reveals that Brajesh Mishra formally spoke to Farooq Abdullah about this in your home.
Yeah, we were having dinner together one night and this whole thing came up. Possibly I brought it up and he told Dr. Farooq, yes, I think we can make you vice president, or we'll make you vice president.
And in fact, Farooq also told you, because you mentioned this in your book, that he had, or rather this had been subsequently reaffirmed to him directly by both L.K. Advani and Vajpayee.
That's right, because I think it was that same summer, 2002, I was hauled up by him. I happened to be in Srinagar. And I was called by him to his office and he said, tell me, what is Delhi up to? Are they going to actually appoint me vice president? I said, why do you have doubts? Haven't you met the prime minister and the deputy prime minister? He said, I have, but I don't trust Delhi.
And in the end, he didn't become vice president, and so maybe his distrust was justified. But the interesting thing is that there has been
you know, this is the really interesting thing. You hit the nail on the head. That Farooq never forgets, but he forgives very easily. If you recall, at Mr. Vajpayee's death anniversary, when everybody else was present, the present BJP leadership, including Mr. Modi and I think Amit Shah as well, he said, Bharat Mata ki Jai.
He did indeed.
Yeah. And ever since, more so since Vajpayee's passing, he has repeatedly praised Atalji.
And I take it that this present government is aware of all of that.
Obviously, sure, they should be.
And I imagine that this is something at some point you've discussed with Ajit Doval as well.
No, I haven't.
But he's aware of it.
Oh, I'm sure he's aware of it.
And I take it Ajit Doval is also aware of the fact that in 2002, Advani Saab and Vajpayee Saab had seriously considered making Farooq vice president. He's aware that an earlier generation of BJP leaders felt pretty comfortable with the Abdullahs.
I think they may still be comfortable with the Abdullahs, more comfortable than anybody else.
When you say they, do you mean the present government?
The present government.
How do you know this?
My sense is that, you know, when the alliance with the PDP was made with Mufti Saab, even at that time, my feeling is that there was an attempt, or there was thinking, that of reaching out to the National Conference. Unfortunately, at that point of time, Dr. Farooq was in London undergoing surgery for a kidney replacement. And what I heard was that somebody actually went and met him there, and he said, I think he was in intensive care, and he said, look, I can't say anything, you need to meet Umar.
And
Possibly Umar turned it down. I don't know.
but you're saying something very interesting.
What I'm saying is that, to my mind, even in 2014, people in Delhi were thinking whether the National Conference may not be a better option than the PDP. Because there were always doubts about the PDP.
And in fact, you're saying
And
that
Atal
someone
Bihari
from
Vajpayee-
Delhi, i.e. from the government side, travelled to London to speak to Farooq.
That's my sense.
And Farooq
That's
said,
what I heard.
Omar has to decide, I'm in hospital.
That's right.
And Omar probably turned it down.
That's my sense. That's right.
So as far back as the last election in Jammu and Kashmir, the Modi government actually would have preferred, or at least tried, to forge a relationship with Farooq Abdullah and the National Conference. When that didn't happen, they were left with no choice but to go to PDP.
I don't know whether we could take it to that extent, but I'm sure that it would be it must have been considered.
And so you believe that even today, they
Oh.
look with some measure of comfort at Farooq Abdullah and the National Conference.
Certainly the Abdullahs, yes.
And that, in a sense, lies behind this release.
Could be.
And therefore, you expect that there will be some process of talking to him. You may not be able to reveal the details, because I can understand, but this comfort
I wish
and
I
the
knew the
release-
details. I would certainly reveal them, but I have no idea.
But it's logical that they will.
I'm sure they will.
Finally, we're coming to the end of part one. Do you think this government will also talk to Mehbooba Mufti?
Absolutely. I think they need to talk to everybody.
No, but how do you know they will talk to her? You said absolutely.
She's been in alliance with them. She's a big player. And Dr. Farooq didn't mention Mehbooba's name for nothing yesterday. So, it all
Adds up.
adds up, yeah.
Do you think they've already begun a process with her?
I wouldn't know.
Just as you went to meet Farooq, do you think there's someone else who's gone to meet her?
Who knows? But I don't know. I have no inkling. And I didn't, as I said, I went to meet, please, let's put this straight. I went to meet Farooq as a well-wisher.
Absolutely.
I was not an
But
emissary
with-
of anybody.
But with clearance given by the Home Ministry.
Yeah, of course.
Finally, do you think they will also talk to Omar Abdullah?
Of course they will. Of course they will. Not only will they talk to Umar Abdullah, Delhi, for whatever reasons, has always been more comfortable with Omar than with Farooq. It's very strange.
Do you see Omar Abdullah becoming Chief Minister again?
He'll be the next Chief Minister in Jammu and Kashmir.
He'll be the next Chief Minister.
Next Chief Minister, whenever elections are held.
What gives you that confidence?
I said this in 2008 as well, I think about 6 or 8 months before he became Chief Minister. He's the obvious choice.
And you're also
The
saying that,
National Conference is the only party, Mr. Thapar, with a spread all over the state.
and you also said a moment ago that the comfort they feel with Farooq Abdullah, they feel an even greater comfort with Omar.
With Omar. That's right.
That was true clearly of Vajpayee. You said a moment ago that Vajpayee looked upon Omar with fondness and admiration. You're saying so does Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah.
I don't know, but I'm talking of Delhi in general, has always felt more comfortable. Farooq doesn't make you feel that comfortable. It's a pity actually, because he is a much taller leader, the tallest in Kashmir. But people in Delhi have not been able to understand him.
Can I ask you this? Are you reflecting in some sense the views of Ajit Doval?
No. I can't proxy for him. He's too big now.
Let's take a break at that point. When I come back, I want to talk about the general situation in Kashmir. But first, a message from our sponsor, Glenlivet, whilst I take a reassuring sip from this glass.
Take a little trip with me, I'm gonna take you home.
Take a little history down this lane of memories.
Down this lane.
So let's raise another glass for the glorious past and the friends we have become. Yeah, yeah, 'cause little did we know the good times come and go, but the best is yet to come.
Welcome back to a special interview for The Wire. My guest is the former head of R&AW, the author of Kashmir, the Vajpayee Years, and a man who knows more about Jammu and Kashmir than probably anyone else, A.S. Dulat. Mr. Dulat, let's talk about the situation in Kashmir. How did you find Srinagar when you landed on the 12th of February?
Absolutely normal on the surface. There was traffic, there were the usual jams, shops were open, children, it appeared, going to school. When I asked the driver that, I said, are schools open? He said, no, these are kids going to coaching centers. So a whole lot of coaching centers appeared to have opened in Srinagar. But it looked very normal. Everything was normal.
So, as you drove
And there
from
was,
the airport
there was
to
no
Gupta
strike,
Road,
no protest, no stone pelting, nothing.
So, as you drove from the airport to Gupta Road and then back again, the city looked normal,
Absolutely normal.
exactly as you always remembered it.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it looked normal.
What about the mood of the people? Was that bitter? Was there resentment, or was there resignation and acceptance?
Well, let me put it like this, that the Kashmiri has really been, this came to him as a bit of a jolt, you know, this abrogation of 370. And the immediate reaction that I heard in August and September last year was that, you know, we've had a lot of issues with Delhi. We've had a lot of problems with Delhi, but we've never had problems with the people of India. Why have the people turned against us? Why have they forsaken us? And there was this feeling of, you know, the Kashmiri likes to hype it up a bit, betrayal. And then some said, but then we should have expected nothing better from Delhi. So there was that feeling. But with the passage of time, the sense I get is that 370 is done, dusted, and I think Kashmir and Kashmiris are reconciled to it. They know that 370 can't come back. The issues, immediate issues, are how to get back to normal life. I think that is what troubles the common Kashmiri most of all. And they can only get back to normal life once the political process is revived. And the other thing, apart from the demand that Dr. Farooq made yesterday about the release of leaders, the demand which is going to come up very soon is the one about statehood, the return of statehood for Jammu and Kashmir.
They feel the loss of statehood very keenly.
Absolutely, and I think the government of India is committed to it, because both the Prime Minister and the Home Minister have said this in Parliament. And I was at a lit fest in Chandigarh in December, where on a panel on Kashmir, Ram Madhav was sitting next to me, and he said, statehood to wapis ho jayegi.
Explain this to me. How do you account for the fact that 7 months have passed since the abrogation, 7 months have passed since the loss of statehood, and there hasn't been any widespread popular protest at all?
Well, I think the security situation has been pretty well handled, and I must compliment the security forces, although there are far too many around, but still, there are so many that I don't think the Kashmiris really had the gumption to come out and protest or get killed. As a youngster told me, the Kashmiri has decided not to die cheap. So, you know, there was no point in protesting.
Now, one of the intentions behind the abrogation of Article 370 was to curb radicalism, and in particular the influence of the Jamaat-e-Islami. 7 months later, has the government succeeded, or do you fear that radicalism may have actually increased?
Well, radicalism is certainly increasing. You know, first let's understand. Actually, radicalism, there's a lot of talk from time to time about ISIS coming to Kashmir. It won't come to Kashmir easily. It's alien to Kashmir. You know, the old Sufi tradition still continues. And I've said time and time again that Kashmiriyat will not die in Kashmir. But having said that, yes, among the youth there is so much anger. And now they talk about, what they call shahadat for Allah.
This is what you mean when you say radicalism has increased?
No, radicalism, the more dangerous radicalism to my mind is what you mentioned, the growth of the Jamaat-e-Islami. Now the Jamaat-e-Islami used to have just 2-3 pockets, one in North Kashmir, in Sopore, and a couple of them in the south, Shopian, Pulwama, that area. Now the spread is growing, and it's infiltrating into services, into the police, and I think that's something that should concern Delhi.
And this has happened after August the 5th?
It's happened in the last 3-4 months in particular. It's happening.
So far from radicalism being
But
diminished.
ironically, let me add something to that. That once the National Conference gets into stride as a political force again, I would not be surprised if the Jamaat has no option but to support the National Conference.
You're saying in a sense, aren't you, that the return of the National Conference as a viable, forceful political entity will actually check radicalism and check Jamaat in particular?
It will.
But at the moment,
It always has.
But at the moment, you're also saying, and this is very important, that in the last 3-4 months, radicalism has increased particularly.
It has.
And the spread of Jamaat most worryingly.
Absolutely.
So far from the abrogation actually curbing radicalism, it may have fueled it.
Yes, it has, because of the political void.
The other intention behind the abrogation of Article 370 was to curb terror.
Yeah. But terror hasn't ended, and it's not going to end. But it has been curbed to a large extent. You know, the strange thing that I heard about 3-4 months ago, that about the number mentioned was about 50 foreign militants had come in.
What do you mean foreign?
Foreign means basically Pakistanis. They could be Afghans, sometimes they're Turks, Arabs. But they had come in through the north. This is what one heard. Now they seem to have got lost somewhere. Either they never came in, the narrative was wrong, or they're waiting for something to happen. Because, you know, in the recent encounters, almost all those who have been killed are local boys.
But this is very interesting. If your account that 50 foreigners have entered and then disappeared and can't be traced is true, that
They seem to have sort of disappeared.
That suggests that there are 50 potential terrorists lying under the surface waiting for their moment.
Could be. Quite possibly, yes.
That's bad news.
It is bad news.
That means actually that far from curbing terror, the potential for terror there.
Well, terror has been curbed. I think here we need to give credit to the security forces, the army, the paramilitary, the
But these 50 are still there.
JK police.
But
they
these
all-
50 are there.
So one hears.
And you're worried about that.
I'm worried about it, sure.
Let's come to the Jammu and Kashmir Apni Party, which was set up recently. Do you see this as a viable, credible political formation or as a king's party?
Obviously, it's a king's party, and the timing of it is intriguing, because it seems to, the idea seems to be to preempt other political activity. But you know, these people in the king's party, I've known most of them. They're all friends.
Altaf Bukhari, Hassan
Yeah, in
Mir.
fact, I called up Altaf to congratulate him. He's an old friend. But certainly, this Apni party cannot be a substitute for the National Conference. And there is no substitute for the National Conference in Kashmir.
And the interesting thing is now, after the release of Farooq Abdullah,
Yeah.
and what you've said or hinted,
You won't hear about the Apni party for a while now.
this is in fact a bit of a setback for the Apni party.
Well, setback, if they think that there was something big, then there's a setback. Interestingly, on both occasions, at the time of the launch of the party and also when the party was being announced, the formation of the party, on both occasions, Altaf has gone out of his way to speak well of Umar Abdullah. So
What do you read into that?
So I think he also sees Umar as the the future chief minister.
In which case, where does that leave the Apni party?
Well, the Apni party has to figure it out. I think possibly they hope to ally with the National Conference, but whether the National Conference would need them or not,
But
it depends on the arithmetic in
suddenly
Kashmir.
there are question marks about the Apni party over their future.
Of course there would be. There would be. The question is of credibility, and the question here is that even coming back to the National Conference, although it is the party in Kashmir, ultimately what the Kashmiri will look for is deliverance. What are you going to do for us? What can you get for us? First of all, and that is why Farooq made this point yesterday, please release everybody.
And that
this
is
has
also,
to be. This will be the first confidence building step.
And that is
then
also
the second, the more vital, important will be statehood.
And that is why Farooq needs to talk behind closed doors to people in Delhi to get some sense of what they can offer, so that when he does take a more frontline political role, does start campaigning, does start talking, he can start reflecting that. He needs an understanding with Delhi.
No, understanding, of course, he needs with Delhi. But as far as his political role goes, I think it started yesterday. When he came out and said what he said that as a politician.
My last question. If you were to be asked, for hypothesis' sake, by Ajit Doval, you know Kashmir, he'll say to you, Dulat Sahab. You know the Abdullahs. You've spent the majority of your working career either with IB or in some other capacity in Kashmir. What should I do next? What should the government do next? What would your advice be?
Talk, talk, talk.
Who to?
And never end engagement. And here, that's a good question, because I think ultimately we need to talk to Pakistan as well. This whole Kashmir thing will only finally be resolved once Pakistan comes on board. Now, this is the beginning yesterday of bringing the mainstream back on board. I think it's not that difficult to bring Pakistan also on board. The narrative doing the rounds is that Pakistan is very angry with the abrogation of 370, but it can't be angrier than what the Kashmiri was. And if the Kashmiri can be reconciled to the abrogation of 370, I don't see any reason why Pakistan should not be reconciled. And let me remind you what General Musharraf used to repeatedly say: whatever is acceptable to the people of Kashmir would always be acceptable to Pakistan.
But what makes you think that this government is willing to talk to Pakistan? I know that Mr. Modi by tweet has suggested a video conferencing of SAARC, which includes Pakistan. But what makes you think they'll be willing to talk to Pakistan about Kashmir?
I have no idea at all, but this is my sense. There is an inevitability about it. It will happen. How long it will take?
But you began by saying talk, talk, talk. That's your advice to the hypothetical question Ajit Doval asked. Talk to whom in Kashmir?
Aha. Talk to Farooq Abdullah, talk to Umar Abdullah, talk to Mehbooba, talk to all the others, Sajjad, talk to young Imran Ansari, talk to everybody. And also, let's not forget the Mirwais. I think it's very important to talk to the Mirwais, to also bring the so-called separatists on board. We have been talking to them in the past.
Advani and Vajpayee in particular.
Yeah.
And I end by repeating what you said. Whenever Farooq has been approached, he's always responded. And you have that at the back of your mind when you say to this hypothetical question from Ajit Doval, talk to Farooq Abdullah in particular.
He is the quintessential Kashmiri, and the Kashmiri will never ever say no to talks.
Mr. Dulat, a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure, sir.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.